And we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final part of the show, I just wanted to touch upon the Titans offseason and what they've been able to do. I know in the top of the show, we talked about a team that really hasn't done much. But the Titans are another team that has, made some signings. So I wanted to touch upon that. So most recently, this is the big one. So they signed Calvin Ridley to a 4-year, $92 million contract with $50 million guaranteed. So you pair him up with DeAndre Hopkins. They also signed Tony Pollard to replace Derrick Henry. They signed Lloyd Cushenberry from the Broncos, the center. They signed him to a 4-year deal worth $50 million with $26 million guaranteed. They also did sign Mason Rudolph to be the backup to Will Levis. So he is not returning to Pittsburgh. They re-signed Nick Folk to a 1-year deal. Their kicker. They brought in Kenneth Murray Jr. from the Chargers on a 1-year deal. Linebacker, $18 million. They brought in Awuzie, the cornerback. I can't say his first name, but you know who I'm talking about. Awuzie, the cornerback. He agreed to a 3-year deal worth $25.5 million with $17.5 million guaranteed. Morgan Cox, their long snapper, another long snapper, got re-signed. And they also signed a guard as well. But the big moves are on the offensive side of the ball. So you bring in Ridley, you bring in Pollard, a center, and Cushenberry. Cushenberry started 57 out of 65 games for the Broncos, allowing only 2 sacks in the last 2 seasons. So that's good. That's good, and you want to protect your young quarterback. And they have surrounded him with weapons. You bring in Ridley. You got DeAndre Hopkins there. Tony Pollard now you bring in to pair him with Tajay Spears. And you also have some other receivers as well. I think they still have Westbrook Akine and, of course, Treylon Burks, who they drafted to replace A.J. Brown. Now, that's the one thing that I wanted to talk about. Well, one of the other things I wanted to talk about was the fact that the Titans screwed up. They know that they screwed up because they traded A.J. Brown because they didn't want to pay him. They drafted Treylon Burks, and that hasn't really worked out so far. So now they go out and they trade for they sign Calvin Ridley to that contract, and a lot of people are saying he got overpaid. So yeah, 4 years, $92 million, $50 million guaranteed. And Calvin Ridley's an older receiver. So the Titans realized that they kind of screwed up. And people lost their jobs because of them trading A.J. Brown. So yeah, Calvin Ridley's 29. DeAndre Hopkins is 31. And I think A.J. Brown is what, 27, 28? I think. Let me just do a quick check. Oh, no, not even that. He's 26. Yeah, so you sign an older receiver to that big of a contract. And listen, Ridley, I think, had over 1,000 yards receiving with the Jags. He was inconsistent. And, I know I was talking about, my friends were talking about it in our sports chat yesterday, some of them saying Ridley lost his step. Well, yeah, the other thing, too, is didn't play for almost 2 years. So, yeah, of course it may look like he lost a step. But I think, for a guy that really didn't play for a long time, the fact that he got over 1,000 yards is incredible, I think. Now, again, he's going to be a year older. So we'll see. I mean, again, and it was funny seeing on social media, this receiver core would be great if it was 3 years ago. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins I thought was okay, with Will Levis. I mean, of course, in his debut, Will Levis's debut, he had 3 touchdowns. But again, he's not the same DeAndre Hopkins that he once was. I mean, Ridley, again, he's getting older. So, Tony Pollard had over 1,000 yards, but, again, he looked like he lost a step. But I think we got to see, now another year removed from the injury. Let's see, what he is like, what he's like with the Titans now, another year removed from the injury that he suffered in the playoffs against the 49ers. But listen, this is going to be a big year for Will Levis. They've surrounded him. Whether you think the weapons are older or not, I mean, I think what he has around him is serviceable. And we saw flashes. He's got a big arm, but now he's got to go out there and prove it. You got weapons around you. So now again, I think losing Derrick Henry and replacing him with Tony Pollard, obviously, different size running backs. But you know what? If Tony Pollard could be the Tony Pollard that he was in 2022, that is a big pickup for the Titans. And you got Tajay Spears there, who they drafted. So we'll see how that duo works. But yeah, I mean, bringing in Ridley, pairing him with DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, I think they're going to find success. But again, Will Levis has to go out there and prove it. You got a new head coach, an offensive-minded head coach you got from the Bengals in Callahan. So let's see what he can do. I think, you're going to see some improvement. I mean, there has to be. If not, well, then he's clearly not the guy. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that, yeah, Will Levis is definitely the guy. Got to see him go out there and prove it now. And again, got to see what the Titans do in the draft. But again, you add an offensive lineman, you add a receiver, a running back. So, now it's up to Will Levis to go out there and prove it that he is, in fact, the guy. The problem is, as much as I could say, yeah, I kind of like, the offense on paper. I don't really expect the Titans to win a lot of games next year. I'm going to say that because, again, you're playing in a division where the teams ahead of you are better. I still look at Jacksonville as being a team that's better than them, even though they really haven't done that much in the offseason. I mean, they added Gabe Davis to replace Ridley. And listen, they still got Christian Kirk, Zay Jones. I think Evan Ingram, Travis Etienne, of course, Trevor Lawrence comes back and is healthy. I think they're going to be better. And then also, again, look at what the Texans have done. Love what they've done on the defensive side of the ball. They traded for Joe Mixon, added him to the fold. C.J. Stroud now in year 2. The Colts, they were on the doorsteps of making the playoffs with Gardner Minshew as their quarterback. Now Anthony Richardson's coming back for a full season. And actually, speaking of the Colts, they I thought he was done, but nope, he's sticking around. Joe Flacco signed a 1-year deal with the Colts to be their backup quarterback. Which I think that's a good signing just because, again, in case Anthony Richardson gets hurt, you have an experienced backup in Joe Flacco. And look what Flacco was able to do with the Browns. Now, Flacco comes in if he has to. Hopefully he doesn't. But if he has to come in, you have Jonathan Taylor coming out of the backfield. And they got some weapons there. They re-signed Michael Pittman. Josh Downs, their rookie. Now he's going to be going into his second year. Flacco's stepping into a good situation. So that's a good insurance policy in case Anthony Richardson, gets hurt. But knock on wood that he doesn't. But yeah, I mean, where does that leave the Titans though? I mean, and again, the AFC is a gauntlet. So, you got a division that's going to be. I mean, this division is going to be competitive. But again, I still kind of look at the Titans as that, as the team that could be finishing in last. I mean, I look at the Texans right now as the favorites. And you know what? You could even say that there's question marks with Anthony Richardson because, yeah, he looked good in the limited time that we saw him. But, we still got to see what he's all about over the course of a full season, if he plays a full season. So, and yeah, I mean, Jacksonville, I expect them to bounce back, but they have to bounce back. If they don't bounce back, then, that's another team that could be a question mark. So, again, I maybe I'm in the minority, but I kind of like what the Titans did. Again, I don't expect them to be, Super Bowl contenders by any means, or, they could, fight for that third wild card spot. But again, it's just so the conference is just so competitive. They're going to deal with the teams in their division, like I just said. So it's going to be tough. They might be a team that doesn't win a lot of games. But again, their ceiling could be third wild card. So, but I don't know. I mean, listen, now it's really all about the development of Will Levis. Because if he goes out there and he it doesn't play well, then they don't have their guy. But again, it's just kind of funny how the Titans really just regret trading A.J. Brown. Well, I mean, they regretted trading him when he, scored like 2 or 3 touchdowns against them in 2022 in Philly. I mean, they probably regretted it the minute they did trade him. But yeah, when A.J. Brown went off against them, and that's what you lost, And now you trade you pay Calvin Ridley all that money when you could have gave it to A.J. Brown, and A.J. Brown is 26. I was saying he was 27, 28. He's 26. So, yeah, they kind of screwed up there. But yeah, and then they also brought in DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, you could have just kept A.J. Brown. But they didn't want to do that. So, again, yeah, they regret that decision, but now they can't go back on it. I mean, unless they want to, throw all their draft picks at the Eagles and get A.J. Brown back, they're not getting him back. So, yeah, they kind of had to piece it together. You signed DeAndre Hopkins last offseason. Now you sign, Calvin Ridley. Again, Will Levis has got some weapons. But, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. But listen, if under the new regime, if he can develop and take a big step forward, yeah, the Titans are going to be a competitive team. But if not, yeah, this conversation really doesn't matter. So no matter who they add, ultimately the quarterback's got to step up. But maybe you got Mason Rudolph, so maybe the Titans, they're kind of hovering around 500, and then they Mason Rudolph gets put in, and they win their final 3 games and they make the playoffs, and then they're one and done. So no, I'm just saying that. But like I said, it's really all going to come down to the development of Will Levis. So, but listen, they went out and they've surrounded him with weapons. So now he's got to go out there and improve it, and we'll see. And now we'll see what the Titans do in the draft. But yeah, I mean, again, this was a team that had a lot of cap space, and they went out and they spent some money. And again, they may have overpaid, but they did go out and spend it. So, but yeah, that was just the big thing was Calvin Ridley signing with the Titans. Again, I think he was inconsistent, but for a guy that hasn't played in a couple of years, I mean, I thought he was decent for the Jags. Again, Will Levis has a big arm. You saw some flashes. So let's see, how it works out in Tennessee. But again, they could have just kept A.J. Brown, but they didn't want to do that. So now that's why they went out and again got DeAndre Hopkins and got Calvin Ridley. So, but yeah, let me know what you guys think about the Titans offseason. Where do you kind of see them fitting in the AFC South? Again, I kind of look at them still as, unfortunately, the last place team. Again, and there's also the unknowns with the head coach as well. I mean, you got a new head coach stepping in, new regime. I mean, how's that going to go? But we'll find out. So, but yeah, with that is all the time that we have for today. I thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back again tomorrow, same time, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And until then, I'm Kenneth Grunfelder signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.